Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of Crit Hit Reviews with your host, Arlyeon. On today's episode, I'll be talking about Antagonist Studios' Norse-flavored horror title, Through the Woods. Find out if I thought this title could do no harm, or if it turned out to be a major drog. You take the role of Karen, who's doing her best to balance work and being a single mother. Unfortunately, a negligent lapse of care results in her son, Espen, being kidnapped by a stranger and then taken through the woods. And yet, it's not just the lingering fear of what the kidnapper intends for her child that haunts her every moment, for strange creatures lurk in the primordial forest she finds herself in. Creatures of Norse legend, which are every bit as fearsome and lethal as tales might I can't actually. I tried. I'll admit the premise of Through the Woods is definitely interesting, and I've always been a fan of folklore creatures. And it's pretty fun to me that you do get to find little lore pages that help flesh these things out and their role in the game. But I had difficulty all the way through the woods. Because while there is visual storytelling and normal dialogue, there's also a lot of the main protagonist narrating to herself in a sort of heavy-handed and altogether hammy instance of waxing poetic. It genuinely does a number on a lot of the emotional moments by thoroughly monologuing over everything to ensure the point is hammered in with all the grace and subtlety of a sledgehammer. I also ended up legitimately despising the main character, with a few elements near the late game just making them a completely contemptible and altogether repulsive character, which is an issue in a character-driven narrative, and she's the weakest aspect. That said, I really did enjoy the lore pages, though. Now, when it comes to the meat and potatoes of what you'll be doing, well, a lot of it is essentially wandering through the aforementioned woods, armed with little more than a flashlight and your own two legs. You don't have to worry about health, since should one of the forest denizens catch up to you, well, you'll die instantaneously, instead requiring you to learn the respective mechanics and how to best avoid or sneak around them. Or, run away screaming while occasionally pausing to shine a light frantically in the woods in the hopes that the thing chasing you might be inconvenienced by bright lights long enough that the gutting you becomes less high in its list of priorities. Strategy! Or something. To be fair, the game's various chapters are sprawling enough to provide quite a few different avenues to fit all of your survivalist needs, up to and including finding more hidden paths to entirely bypass creatures. But it also provides players with secondary objectives to pursue, which are more than likely seeded just to provide you more reasons to closely explore otherwise hostile territory. I'm talking about collectibles here, folks. See, all that tasty lore I was talking about earlier? Well, some of those odds and ends are found while you're rummaging through the burnt-out or abandoned guts of villages and cabins. Others are in more hostile climes, with items being hidden in grottos or notes being stashed in solitary spots. If you do want to get a glimpse of some folklore, then you're likely going to need to brave the far reaches of these places to discover them. But hey, if you do end up missing a few due to either an oversight or possibly wandering a bit too far and ending up in the next chapter, since there's no real indication of when a chapter ends, well, at least there's a chapter select for those achievement hunters in the audience. Alright, so in the sound department, I'm pretty sure it's already been made clear that I was really annoyed by a chunk of the narration over the course of the game, as a lot of the monologue moments were unnecessarily long. There were also a few moments during cutscenes where changes of angle or perspective would lead to some really weird bits of sound shifting. Despite this, Through the Woods also manages to do a lot right in the sound department. For one thing, the music does work for setting a creepy yet weirdly serene atmosphere of the forest you're navigating. But what I found was really good was the way that the various creatures gave audio cues for their movements or aggression, leading to some tense moments of navigating the dark forest and very cautiously listening for the first sign that something was coming for you. Visually, things were pretty appealing to look at, though There were some distinctly weird moments for me, given that the character models sometimes felt a little bit stiff during the cutscenes, and it was really awkward for a monster to catch up and kill me, and then the screen to pan around because how I was positioned to my body just standing upright and fine while the sounds of being mauled filled my ears. That bit of pickiness aside, however, I did enjoy the monster designs, and the woods themselves were pleasant to tromp through. We're down to the finale, and I'm not really sure what to say other than I guess I expected more. I'm going to avoid doing the discourtesy of comparing this to other titles, at least in the video, but there was a lot about this game that drove me up the wall, and not in a good way. Narratively, it was a heavy-handed experience that felt like it was clumsily trying to pluck at the heartstrings, only to fail miserably. Whilst I enjoyed his take on the mythology and the appearance and behavior of the various creatures and the way it chooses to hint at how to manage them through its lore, when it came to the overarching plot, I wasn't really compelled for the most part. And the gameplay wasn't overly enthralling either. Whilst I enjoyed the small puzzle of figuring out how to bypass or navigate the game's various creatures, I'll also admit that the woods could be a bit annoying at times, as the process of navigating them was, well, getting lost was a pretty easy process, as was running around in circles and accidentally advancing to points of no return vis-a-vis loading screens was something that happened quite a bit. Given that exploration is a part of the game, that's a really frustrating aspect, actually. I did enjoy the music, and the sound design of the creatures in regards to how it cues you into their proximity is on point. Like, that was one of the better parts of the game overall, and the environment and creatures, again, looked neat, but the character models themselves and their movements felt like they left a bit to be desired, especially with some of the more janky or lacking animations. Overall, I'd actually boil this down to a fail, due to a combination of a storyline that couldn't be saved by its compelling backstory / folklore, and the overall mediocre gameplay. I just can't really overly find myself recommending this to anyone when there's other titles that simply do it better. Anywho, thanks for tuning in. If you agree, disagree, or just have something to say to me, feel free to comment. And for those interested in more indie reviews, developer interviews, podcasts, or our Monday TTRPG content, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you know when there's a new release. There's also a Discord, which you can click the link in the banner or the description so you can be a part of our community, the Crit Hit Cauldron. Lastly, if you'd like to help support the channel, we do have a coffee running now to help supplement funds for our lovely editor Jack, as well as to provide, support for myself and Lovi for food and just odds and ends so we can continue to provide quality content. Again, check the description and the banner for them links. Anywho, I'll catch you on the next episode of Crit Hit. Take care till then, folks. See ya.